years. Linda and I celebrated 40 years in December of wedded bliss. As we said, 40 years. Linda said at one point, they've been 20 of the most wonderful years of my life. And very close to that. But it has been an interesting ride for us. When he posed the question, and I posed it to Linda, I said, how did we do 40 years? And we scratched our heads a little bit, and we said, well, we've never really just sat down and thought these were the issues that helped us make 40 years. We just kind of did it. You just do it. You do it one day at a time. You do it one blessing at a time. You do it one crisis at a time. You kind of do it. But we did sit down and we just started talking about what are some of the what seem to be some of the common themes of our life. So what you're getting this morning is as much a personal introspection and conversation as it is a sermon. And so I hope it helps you. I think it helped us just talking about ourselves and how that we did it. I do want to, before I get started, I do want to remind you that there's an event this week, on Saturday this week at Reno Christian Fellowship called One Cry. It's a yearly event. There is not another thing like it in the year. This is the third time they've done it, where different churches, different ministries from all over this city gather in one spot. Last year there was over 80 churches and ministries represented from our city came together to pray for revival in Reno and Sparks. And we're going to be doing it again. You can go online. It's $15, and that just mostly covers the food. $15. But go online, just Google One Cry Reno, and all the information is there. Sign up and be there with me and worship. Let's sit together. Let's all just come and sit together, and let's pray for our city. Okay, let's begin by turning 1 Corinthians 6, 16b and 17. All right? Yeah, thank you. Got the young people in this service. The last one, not so much. Not so much. You guys that are here, a whole bunch of them sitting right in the front row, as they always do, and I always pull a little bit of energy from this group when I speak. But you guys especially pay attention this morning, because all this is mostly ahead of you. For some of us are doing catch up, and some of us trying to figure it out. But you guys get to choose. You got a lot of time ahead of you to choose your relationships and who those people are going to be and how you're going to live your lives with them. So you guys at least take some mental notes, something that it might help you. We were your age once too. I know, hard to believe, but we were. For as it is written, the two will become one flesh, but he who is joined to the Lord becomes one spirit with him. Now this is Paul talking to the church in Corinth. The church was kind of a mess, and it was in a messy city. It was in a place where kind of everything goes. But people got saved in this city. People became Christians in this city, and they started a church. The church was full of a little bit of everything, and the church at Corinth was mistakenly believing that somehow they could kind of continue to live the same lives they had, but now they could pull this covering of Jesus over the top of it, but they could still, the things they still liked, the things they'd done in their past, they could still do. And Paul is writing this letter not only correcting their past, but he also begins to correct their present, because some of the new stuff in their lives they were mishandling as well. These guys were a mess. And so Paul is trying to describe to them this new place that they were meant to live. They've been pulled into a new kingdom, and it changes everything. For you, when you became a believer, became a Christian, it changes everything, and that includes marriage. It's one of the things, but because marriage is the most significant relationship that two people will ever have. because of the intensity of it, because of just the commitment that is necessary to make it happen. It has the greatest potential of being rich blessing or a real headache. And so Paul was trying to help them understand that though the two were becoming one flesh, that this was this intense relationship of the two becoming one flesh. It came under this other covering of the two, those joined to the Lord, become one with Him. And so you've drawn this third very significant party into this relationship. And your standard has now changed from whatever goes and whatever it looked like before to now being managed by the presence of God, by the Holy Spirit in their life. And marriage becomes a different thing in that kingdom. Now, I've conveniently, just so you can picture all of this, this is 40 years ago here. I know you're thinking, Tom, you haven't changed a bit, except for the sideburns. Linda really hasn't. She's pretty much the same. That was it. Edna, were you there? There's one person that was there. Edna, wave your hand. This is one of our dear friends. She was there that day. Yeah. And Linda was there. Yeah, she was there. And it was that. This is us. This is the contemporary version of us. This is the next one here. There we are. Go Pack. And we have done it for 40 years. We did it one day at a time. We don't think, in talking about it, we don't think we're any different than anybody else. We did have two families, good families we came from, but they weren't perfect families. We met young. We were in high school. We started dating in summer of 1967. So if you do the math, 1967 to 1974, there were 7 years there that we were getting to know one another. One of us had some commitment issues, and I really don't care to expose either, in the relationship. I don't want to expose anybody as to who that person was, but it took 7 years, but someone came to their senses, and we got married. You don't know. Anybody who's been married a while you could say this. Yeah, he knows what he's talking about here. You don't know what you're getting into. You really don't. Now, you have no clue what you're getting into. You're in love, and that seems to be pretty good for a start. There ought to be something there. But I know people who were in arranged marriages that never had even seen each other before they were married. I'm old enough to know people whose lives and culture were arranged. And they made it 40 years. Some of you have made it more than 40. You ought to be preaching this sermon. I tell people that our goal in the beginning was 41 years, and we've almost done it. We've almost done 41. We didn't really have a goal. We did have a goal to stay married. It didn't occur to us to talk about anything different than that. So from the very beginning, there was something in it. So as I go through these are kind of our personal reflections as strained through me. But the creation and preservation of a healthy marriage is secured in friendship. That 7 years I told you about before we got married, we, for the most part, were friends. We dated and we went steady. I think that means something different nowadays, but we did spend time together and apart. But we were building a friendship, and I liked being with her, and it seemed like she liked being with me. And we were smart enough to somehow know in the beginning that this relationship was going to be very significant, and so we probably need to spend time. Now, I'm here to tell you, honestly tell you, I would rather hang out with Linda than I would anybody in the world. I would rather be with her. And I'm sorry, guys, you smell funny. She smells better. It's just, I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. But I prefer her. And that preference has come out of a friendship that has grown. It's been tested, it's been challenged, but it's a friendship. And this will help, because a lot of you, it may not be as significant what I'm telling you right now. You may not be in a relationship, but somebody you know is in a relationship. If it's not you, you can glean something for them. But probably you've got a friend. Somebody in your life is a friend. And a good friendship is a relationship that helps you become better than you are right now. If you're in a relationship and it's extracting from you, you're giving away more than you're getting. If the other person is so needy all the time that you constantly find yourself emotionally exhausted because you've given everything, but nobody ever gives back to you, could I just suggest to you that's not a friendship? That's something else. You've become a resource, but you've not been resourced. So there's a mutuality that has to be in a relationship, in a friendship, where the two of you are committed to the other's well-being. That's what a friendship does. The Bible says it this way in Proverbs 27. It says, "As iron sharpens iron, so man sharpens his friend." It's the idea of two axe heads, of sort of rubbing together, with the idea of maybe a few sparks once in a while with that, but that the whole object of this thing is that we cut the wood better, we do a better job. How many of you ever tried to cut anything down with a dull axe? It's not only hard, it's dangerous. That's where the axe glances off. The sharper it is, the better bite it's going to get. Well, a friendship, the Bible talks a lot about friendships. A friendship makes you better. It sharpens edges. It's that point where there's somebody who's got my back enough to not only encourage me when I'm doing well, but who also will help me when I'm not at my best. When I can do better, when there's somebody that I trust enough, who I know loves me enough, when they tell me, that's not your best effort, it means something coming from them. And that a friendship is supposed to work that way. Somebody in my life that I trust is able to inspire me, is able to correct me based on my need. And so I think one of the best things that's happened to us is that Linda and I have become and are best friends. I like hanging out with her. She doesn't throw a ball very good, but I don't either anymore. It's like, oh, hey, man, I hurt. So, but the things that are important, the things that really build relationship, really have not much to do with throwing a ball. And so we've built, not always around similar appetites and interests. We have things that are different, and we're not exclusive to one another. I have other friends, she has friends, but we are still our best friend. She is the confidant. She's the person I need in my life who knows things about me that nobody else knows. And so a friendship is a good place to start. I got online to check this out. There's actually a conversation going on out there in cyberspace somewhere about whether your spouse should be your best friend or not. And a lot of people don't think they should be. I was a little surprised by that. Like, well, why did you marry them if it's not your best friend? It's like, I want to hang around with guys that can do this, Hallelujah. Yeah. I don't want that. Anyway, let's keep moving on. I'll never get there. It just suggests, the friendship suggests that two people like each other and really would like to be together. I like being with Linda. Okay, 2, we're in this together. You don't ever take this oneness for granted. This thing where Paul said the two will become one flesh. He, of course, was quoting from Genesis, where God is speaking over Adam and Eve and telling them what their destiny was meant to be, that something was going to happen. I talked a few weeks ago about the the three loves, that the Bible talks about, the phileo love, which is the friendship, the buddies, people where we do have what I just described a few minutes ago, but that's the phileo. And then there's the eros love, the erotic, the sexual love and draw. And then there's the agape, the self-giving love, God's love that I can enjoy, and it's totally directed at others. It doesn't serve me necessarily, but it's directed at others. And I made the comment that marriage is really the only place where all three of those can meet. It's the only place where all three of those can become part. I need to have a friendship, but I need to have agape love. But also in that, Paul is talking, this quote is actually in a reference to the sexual connection that is allowed in marriage that is not allowed anywhere else. Paul is making a wonderful point, but he's also, because he says after that, who's joined is joined to the Lord. In that statement, he begins to include, he umbrellas a whole bunch of other things. That's not just what the oneness is about. The oneness is about a psychological commitment, a social commitment. It's about making sure that we understand that once we start this relationship, that what happens to one of us is going to be happening to the other. So that if it was happening to Linda at work, there was washover for me. It was not her alone there in that battling it out, or me battling it out, and then we come back together and there's no connection. We did that together. We were a two job family. My wife taught school. Linda taught school for 30 years, and she was good at it. And good teachers spend a lot of time being good. It's not automatic. The kids that remember their teachers, they're talking about teachers who didn't just show up just before the bell rang and were the first ones out the door when it rang in the afternoon. They're talking about teachers who were committed to the process of learning and to the individuals in that process. And my wife was that person. She always had. So she would bring children home, so to speak, with her. I'm pastoring, and so I've got this also highly people-intensive life, and we used to laugh about how every night, she would get in bed with a couple hundred seventh graders, and then I would get in bed with 250 people from church, and the church actually grew down there till it was 400 plus 500 people that we were taking care of, and every night, it's like that's a lot of people to have in bed. But what happened? What happened to one of us happened to the other. If it happened to her family, it happened to me. If it happened to my family, it happened to her. These things were not separate in our heads or in our actions or in activity. Her mom and dad became my mom and dad. My mom and dad became her mom and dad. We made sure, her siblings, my siblings, her siblings. We put this all together into one giant package, and somehow it all worked. What happens to one happens to the other. Now, let me break that down a little more. Turn towards each other instead of away. That's a quote from John Gottman, who got quoted here last week a couple of times. Amazing. He's done some amazing research on marriage. See, this oneness that comes in marriage is the results of thousands of choices. Many of them are big choices that you have to make, but most of them are the small choices that you make daily, these little, almost meaningless conversations. It's all of this. But when you become you're working and you're away, sometimes the way our lives worked, and probably yours too, that sometimes we're with other people more than we're with our spouses. And so the little choices, the big choices, don't really always get made. And what the temptation becomes, and what has happened many times, is this emotional connection that's supposed to be between the two of us. There are things that belong to Linda that are hers alone. There are things that belong to me that are mine. We share it. It doesn't belong to anybody else. But we begin to shift emotionally to other people because sometimes they're handier and no other reason. I'm seeing them more often than my spouse. They're being responsive to me. And so things begin to shift. And when there's problems, I sometimes go to the wrong person, and it gets really sticky when that person is of the opposite gender. You know what I mean? A lot of things start out on the job this way because we're not turning towards one another. You don't have that attitude of what happens to one happens to the other. And so there's no other way to do this than just spend the time talking. Now, I think this is more male and female than it is anything else. I'm trying to be careful not to be stereotyped, and I don't want, every marriage is different. Every marriage finds its own balance, and the successful ones, they're not identical to the people next door. But this thing of turning away is very real. There has to be discussion and talk. When guys come home, and you could just vote, probably the wives, let the wives vote. When guys come home from work, they're usually pretty much done. They don't want to talk about it. Day's done. What I did, I did. How was the day, honey? It was good. Well, what happened? I talked to some people on the phone. Well, anything else? Yeah, some people came in my office. Anything else? No, that's pretty much it. That's a guy. When Linda, would say to Linda, especially when she was teaching, I'd say, honey, how was your day? She would start at first period. And I got to know the names of the kids in her class as well. I had some of them. We still talk about a few of them. She taught 7th grade English. Yeah, you get a helmet and camouflage for that job. It's, it's like, I know, let's teach kids who really want to learn a subject they really are interested in. And so she had a hard job, but she's processing her day. And you know what? She had to process it with me. Guys, are you listening to me? She had to process it with me because I am the safest person in her life, and I'm the one who really needs to know. I need to know what her life was going and that she was having problems with, I needed to know that for the safety of our marriage. And the same way with me, I need to learn to talk and give her more information in spite of the fact I'm not hiding anything. I just don't want to talk about it. But in order to process, in order to make sure that we are turning towards each other and not to somebody else, because everybody needs some means of processing, make sure you talk and make sure you listen. At least look like you're listening in the beginning. Guys, it's something like this, okay? Guys, watch. I've perfected this over the years. Yes. Wow, my goodness. That's just extra. You don't have to pay anything. Love doesn't really begin with a feeling. Love really begins with a choice. Now, sometimes you let feelings make the choice. But folks, I just want you to understand, you are in charge of the chooser. As to quote one of our former presidents, you are the decider. You're the one who gets to decide whether you're going to be in this relationship listening and conversing, or sooner or later, those things that begin to build up where you need somebody else to help you process your life, your frustrations, your fears, the challenges. It better be your spouse, or the relationship, the friendship will not be maintained for long. Talk to one another. Spend the time and make sure that you know one another. Watch the competing relationships. If anything or anyone begins to demand excess and long-term time, energy, and resources, be suspicious of it. I know, guys, you got to make a living. Women, we got to make a living. We want to take care of our kids, a roof over our heads. Those things are expected. But just understand that a living is not the only thing the human beings under your charge need. They need you. They need your interest. So be careful. If things begin to compete in your relationship for that relationship, you need to watch it. Even your job. If your job takes you away for weeks and weeks at a time, if your job is beginning to weaken the strength of communication and beginning to weaken the ability to solve problems, and you don't find yourself wanting or needing to be together, then maybe it's the job you need to take a look at. I don't care how much money you seem to be making. Are you following me? You asked me how to do it 40 years. I'm just doing my best. There are things that begin to challenge, and there are things that you will begin to sacrifice thinking it's going to be okay at home. But sooner or later, I've never known anything that didn't start a little bit at a time. Trouble. A little bit at a time. Gave a little here, gave a little there. Let a little go here, ignored something there. And pretty soon the thing became massive, and we say, where in the heck did that come from? It just started. And a little at a time. Adjust together in the changing seasons of life. I won't spend much time on that, but one of the things Lynn and I have discovered about our 40 years is it never stays the same. There's that wonderful time before the children arrive, and then there's that wonderful time when the children arrive, and then there's that time when the children grow up, But we've enjoyed every bit of this. But we raised this wonderful son. We had a wonderful son, and we really loved him. And then the ingrate left home. He packed up his bags and he went to college, and he never really came back. It's like everything we taught him how to do, to be independent, to make good decisions, to watch his relationships, we tried to model all of that in front of him. He went and did it. Like now the two of us are staring at each other. And we're thinking, okay, all that stuff that was concentrated around school and around performances and around soccer and around baseball and all the stuff that he did, that it seems like our whole schedule revolved around him, and now he was gone and he went to Seattle. He didn't move to Reno. He went to Seattle, and it's wet, and he took root. He grew roots up there and then married a girl from up there, and we're just going, this is not exactly, there's something we left out when we were raising him. It's like, Reno, stay in Nevada. We forgot to tell him all of that. Well, all that forces change. Sometimes change is forced on you. We didn't intend to have one child. But because of physical issues and decisions we had to make almost in the moment, we have one child. We had, there people that face job losses. We've lost both sets of our parents. My dad went first. Linda's dad went second. Her mother went third. My mother went fourth. All of those things brought change. The things that affected our siblings and their kids, they've all brought change. And life just keeps changing. And Linda and I found that we have to keep changing with it. If one of us stops, and the other one keeps growing and keeps moving and keeps generating and doing things in our life and doing it separate, then something begins to weaken in the relationship, and sometimes the relationship just breaks down. Both of you have to stay in the game. One of the things that Lynn and I are chaplains with the FCA, with the women's basketball team. We loved basketball season when we used to didn't bother. But we love it. We do it together. It stretched us both. And we find we love those girls, and we love the coaches, and we love what's going on. But we're doing it together. And so the seasons change, but we need to do it too. Don't ignore your spouse's needs. Ignoring emotional needs is probably the biggest contributor to marital unhappiness. Peter said it this way. Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. This is a great verse, guys. If God's not answering your prayers, there might be a hint here as to how that could be happening. Right here. It says, dwell with your wives according to understanding. In other words, know who they are. Know what energizes them, what excites them, what they like to do, and then do your best to try to see to it that situation at least occurs once in a while. Find out what frightens them, what makes them feel insecure. It's my job to try to protect her from that as best I can. It's my job. But in order to do that, guys, you have to know them well enough to know those things. There's so many people, and husbands, it's not just husbands, this verse addresses husbands, but wives do it too, where we don't get, there's just some things you never get. They're just, we are men, we are women, we are wired different. They've proven this. We've got different parts. Things are different. And we need to understand that. But I get to get into that world that's hers. That is uniquely hers. The Bible tells me to get into that world, to find out what she likes, what she doesn't like. Try to avoid that. Don't bring that same thing up. If you know it irritates her when you do that, guys, that was all women's voices. And some of you were very quick to shout it out. And I was like, don't do it. I've been telling you. Guys, I can't see, the lights are a little bit in my eyes. Are your forearms, are you bruised yet? Has it been punched? There's no simple way. Marriage is the most intense relationship you will ever have on the face of this earth. I'm just telling you. And so it requires a lot, but it has the power to be the most life-giving relationship, human relationship that you have. That's what God intended. That's what God had in mind. You cannot ignore the emotional needs of the person that you are connected to. In order to make that happen, in order to care for those emotional needs, you've got to know her enough, got to know him enough to be able to say, he likes this, he doesn't like that. Am I connecting? You're staring. See, the way we look at marriage nowadays, and it's kind of, I think, driven maybe by the computer dating, those things where you fill out the deal and then they try to find somebody that absolutely matches you. Like we said, two spoons in a drawer. They just, everything is the same. He likes this and I like this. And, we love long walks on the beach in the moonlight. And every guy loves that. And, so you're looking for this perfect match. When God does it, when you let God do it, what he does is like he takes like a salad fork and a spatula, and he throws it in the drawer and he goes, now work it out. Yeah, go for it. And in the beginning, I think, what happens is that you got these two personalities, but they become competing personalities. They become, it's like my way. We're gonna run this household my way, and so it becomes a competition to see whose personality, whose characteristics are going to be the strongest traits in this household. That's who's going to be right. And so this thing begins that is not healthy. Somewhere back there, Linda and I began to figure out that the fact that we were incompatible was to our advantage. That it tended to work like this, that where she had a strength, I had a weakness. I wasn't so good in that area. Where I had a strength, she might not have been so good in that area. And somehow we learned how to put this together so that it was mostly a relationship with strengths. And our weaknesses got covered. Are you following me? And it worked better, but it was a lot of work because of our insecurity and immaturity and all the other maturities that mess up people's lives. But it's not a competition. I am not competing with this woman. I am living with her. She is my partner. We're on the same team, and we're headed in the same direction. So even if we are a salad fork and a spatula, we're going to be the best salad fork and the best spatula in the drawer. And we're going to, through that, with the two of us, our son got at least one good parent. That the two of us somehow work this out, and he's better for it, and we're better for it. This is not a competing relationship. I've said for years, and some of you have heard me say this, I've only recognized three kinds of relationships in the world, especially in marriage, but this goes true for friendships, folks, these other relationships that you're in. One of them is the relationship that has two takers in it. Both people are in the relationship to get what they can, and when they are done, when they've taken everything they can get, they are gone. Those relationships never work. Just everybody repeat after me. Never work. Okay. So then you've got this other one, relationship where you've got a giver and a taker. And those make it probably about 50% of the time, because it depends on how long the giver can give and how much the taker wants. Following me? Those last about half the time because people give up. They get tired. They get tired of having things taken out of them day after day and nobody ever putting back into them. Some people have enormous ability to stay in those kinds of relationships, and my hat's off to them. I don't know how it's done. But then, bless God, there is this third